As I said, the first thing that crossed my mind was why me. I wouldn't exactly be renowned for my holiness or I wouldn't say anything else like outside of that. Like I have a deep spiritual faith, but I was just wondering why come to me, like in terms of the John Paul II awards. And I sort of started to think then, well, you obviously sort of looking at the football and the fact that football's related to your club and your parish. And it's funny, as you get older in life and you start looking at things, you tend to look at the bigger picture rather than sort of just what's in front of your face. And I sort of started looking back at my own sort of football, like, and wondered, like, you know, why I played and why I pushed myself so hard, like, and what lessons maybe did I get out of football in life, and what did it teach me that maybe I could impart to some of the young people sort of growing up now in relation to these awards. And it's funny, as I said, when you look back at the bigger picture, I looked at myself and I was always very dedicated and committed to training. In fact, some people will say I was a bit psychotic when it sort of came to it, but I was very driven personally. But at the start, it was very personal. I used to sort of always been training on my own and be away sort of doing things on the football field. I would sort of always trying to sort of push myself that wee bit sort of harder. But as I got that wee bit older, like, and started to learn, like, I started to look for other people to teach me, mentors as it were. And I learned to sort of learn things off them, things that they might have gone through themselves, you know, like that would help me sort of like move on, like in terms of my own ability as a footballer, like, and as a person or a leader on the field. And I did get better. But then, like, you know, I started playing better with my teammates, and I started to learn to sort of like how to sort of interact with them that wee bit more. But it wasn't until a friend of mine came to me, like I suppose you'd call him maybe a sports psychologist, but he gave me a book, and it was called The Battle of Thermopylae. And although in recent years it was become quite popular, like it was quite unheard of just at that particular time. It's the book that the film 300 was based on, and it was about the Spartans. And it was a big book too. Big books weren't sort of usually my sort of forte, but I read it anyway. And I went to him and he said, "Well, what do you think of that, Kieran?" And I said, "I really enjoyed it." And he said, "What was the one thing that you think you could bring from that book?" And I said, like, their motto, the raison d'etre, as it were. And he says, "Which is?" And he says, like, "Come home with your shield or upon it." And he says, "Why?" And for those who don't know, the Spartans were probably renowned as probably the greatest fighting army in the world. But one of the things they did was that they carried their shield in the left hand and their spear in the right. And they carried the shield in the left hand because they protected the man beside them. And that was their sole focus in battle, was to make sure the man beside them survived. And it was through that they became the most invincible army in the world, because they were always willing to make sure that the man beside them was always better looked after than themselves. And I sort of thought to myself, you know, if a team can think that way, you know, as an individual, like I was always sort of, as I said, very personally driven. And I said to myself, my job really on the football field should be to make every man beside me look better than I do. And it was through that philosophy that my own football started to flourish, and we tried to sort of build it through the Armagh team. And eventually we did. We got it through through everybody, that, like, you know, your sole purpose was to make the men beside you look good. And when you followed that philosophy, it was funny how your team became, to me, like, they became almost invincible. It was hard to sort of break down, and even our defence probably was a team within a team. And like over the 10 years we played in championship together, I think we sort of averaged, like, you know, we leaked about 8-9 points a game, which in championship football is quite a feat. But it was through that there I learned that sometimes it's to be part of something bigger that you really become bigger yourself. It's through selfless acts. It's how a team gets stronger and how you get stronger as an individual as well. And basically when you look at it, that's how a family unit starts. You know, your parents, like, through unselfish love and unselfish acts, like, bring up their children, and that becomes a very strong unit, and in turn they become part of a parish. And if they do the same, the parish becomes stronger, and in turn, if the parish does the same, the diocese becomes stronger. And it's learning to sort of do that, and sort of like bring sort of passion to it. And it's funny how the sum of the whole becomes stronger than the sum of the individual parts. And I think that's what these awards are about, is maybe sort of looking after the man beside you, looking after the person beside you, and making them stronger, or making something bigger or better. Now, I know for young people, because I like to think I'm still young myself, even though I'm a wee bit further away from 16 or 18 than I would like to think. In today's age, like, you're probably going to ask yourself, why the church? Why go this route? I suppose when we read the news and the newspaper, something that I'm not big into, because it always seems to be bad. Like, we don't ever talk about the good things in life, we only seem to talk about the bad. But the church has had its fair share of bad news over this past number of years. And they're good questions to ask, and it's healthy to ask questions. But sometimes these rules and regulations that attach themselves to organisations or faiths or anything like that can put young people off. But believe me, if you read the rule book for Gaelic football, for by-rolls and clubs and counties, you'd never bloody play the game. But it's in the playing, it's in the doing that you get your passion. It's in the living. It's not in following the rules. And recently, myself, I've looked for other sports to try and take the edge of things that I do, and I've taken part in a new sport, jiu-jitsu, and somebody was trying to explain to me about the different things, and my teacher came to me and sort of said, I was asking different things, and he said, just forget about the rules, forget about it. He says, feel it, feel your way into it. He said, enjoy it. He says, learn to live the sport. He says, find your way into it. And this is what I'm saying to the young people here. Don't look at the rules and the regulation and all the things that some people will say to put you off. Have a go. Learn how to live it. I said, learn what it feels like to help somebody else. Learn what it feels. Learn how your parents feel when they look at you, the pride and the love that they have for you. Learn how to do that to other acts. And to give examples here, in the sort of the pamphlet there tonight. And I think in doing that, you'll find that it's so much better to be part of something bigger than yourself. It's so much better to actually live things rather than to talk about it, rather than to read about it, to live and to do the things. And I think in helping others and helping your parish or your diocese, you'll find a lot out about yourselves that you don't know at this moment in time. And you'll find that as you grow older, that those things that you find out at this age will stand to you in a big, big way. And it's funny, as I sort of said, I have a young fellow myself now, and it's in those things, it's in those selfless acts that you will feel better, or feel more proud, and you feel the emotion more than anything else that you do in your life. And I was lucky enough that I played a sport that I was very passionate about, and I got to live it. And I got to have those feelings, and I knew what it was like to help the men beside me, I knew what it was like to bring them on. And they in turn knew what it was like to bring me on. And believe me, those feelings can't be matched, they can't be bought, they can't be given. As I say, they have to be lived.
Armagh lead the All-Ireland final. Tomas O'Shea feeding it in, and good defensive play by Armagh. It's out to Kieran McGeeney, the captain. It's all over.
What a result, Sheriff.
Is going over the border. Kieran McGeeney, the captain of the first ever Armagh team to win Sam.
If I have to give you one piece of advice going forward, I would say, don't worry about making mistakes. Don't worry about falling short. Don't worry even that if you pick a particular path and it's not you, that's where you learn the most. It's in that distance that you fall short that you'll probably make more ground than anybody else. And again, bring passion to it. Give it your best shot. Be as good as you can be at whatever you do. Because when you do that, you bring passion to something. And once you have passion for something, it brings enjoyment. And once you have enjoyment, it'll fuel the passion. And with that, I think your life, you feel content, you feel happy. And outside of that, you can't ask for anything more. So all I can sort of say is the best of luck. I hope it goes well for you. And hopefully in a year or two I'll be hearing from Father Liam and seeing how well it's going. Thank you very much.